What's up guys, gals, and non-binary pals? Welcome back to Art by Flan. Today we are doing a piece of some original characters of mine. These characters are probably the oldest original characters I still have around. There have been a lot of characters in my past, and a lot of them were scrapped or I just stopped drawing them after a while, but these two have stood the test of time. Jaku, who is the floating ethereal lady in the background that I'm inking right now, is probably the oldest. She started out as almost every, young anime fan starts out as a self-insert Sailor Moon character, but she has definitely grown as her own individual character. I talk a lot more about her in an individual piece I did traditionally, so I'll link that video here somewhere on the screen and in the description below if you want to know more about her in general as a character. But here she is pictured with probably her constant companion. Every incarnation of her has a version of him with her, and the man she's pictured with is Banira, and they've been sort of a bonded pair in terms of my characters for as long as one has been around. So in the original story, like I said, it was an offshoot of a Sailor Moon character, and of course every good Sailor Moon fan character needs a talking sidekick, and Banira was Jaku's. He was a talking dragon, I think? I don't know, that happened right around the time I'd seen Spirited Away, so he was definitely a knockoff of the dragon in that movie, but he eventually changed forms quite a few times and became just a dog, and now he was like a jackal for a while, and based because my obsession with Egyptian mythology and all of that crazy stuff. So he changed forms a lot, but now he's got two forms, human and dog. And right now what we're depicting is his human form, obviously. I have drawn her with him as a dog. It's in my DeviantArt. I think I finished that piece shortly before starting my channel, so there is no recording of it, but it's there hanging around if you want to see it. So their story now has changed quite a bit. In their original dynamic was that, Banira was, in love with Jaku, but Jaku was infatuated with a god, and the god didn't like Banira sniffing around, so he cursed him, turned him into a dog, and no matter, Banira could live, be near her, but he could never be with her, and part of the curse was that he could never tell her how he felt. She would never honestly know. So he just had to be with her and support her throughout her life while she made all sorts of bad decisions with poorly written romance of a teenager. But now, obviously, their story has changed as they've grown and adapted with me. So has their story. So now, the rough outline of their story, and like I said, it's still sort of up in the air and I'm still working some stuff out, but the basic premise is that Jaku is based off of the Greek goddess Hecate, who's like the goddess of the night and witchcraft and necromancy. And when I designed her character again, I designed her with that sort of, modern day witch aesthetic, and took elements of, Hecate's worship and incorporated it into her character. And you can definitely hear me talk more about her if you're at all interested in me rambling about my OCs. In another piece I did, and I'll link that in the description below. It's a traditional piece, so it's not it's a traditional piece, so it's not digital. But I talk a lot more about her there. But in this one, we're going to talk about the dynamic between these two. When I started reworking them, I definitely know I wanted them to be together finally. I was tired of that love triangle thing I had going on, so I definitely decided they were going to be together. And in this universe, this time around, Banira starts out as a human, and he worships Jaku. He's leader of her cult. He manages her temples, he conducts services for her, presents offerings, recruits new people to worship her, things like that. And definitely focusing on the witchcraft aspect. And because he is an attractive looking young man, it garners the attention of a lot of young women for this cult. So, and in there, they go for him, but they eventually do end up staying, whether it be for him or because they enjoy what he teaches. He, however, never takes a lover because he is completely devoted to Jaku, in that sense that he worships her as a goddess, but he's also very much in love with her. And during some of his travels, during some of his preaching, I guess he runs into a town or something that doesn't appreciate, him preaching the word of this goddess, and he eventually ends up getting killed. And Jaku, being infatuated with her biggest fan and loving, you know, his dedication to her, takes pity on him and turns him into a dog, which is kind of, you know, based on a Greek myth of Hecate, who takes pity on one of her worshippers when she is killed during the Trojan War, I believe, and turns her into a dog. So I used that myth and incorporated it into these characters. So now Banira gets to continue to live with his beloved in the form of a dog. However, he does have the added benefit of turning into a human on new and full moons. I'm sorry about my dogs. Speaking of dogs, when Jaku's power is at its strongest, so he can turn back into a human and they can sort of be together. So that's sort of the story they've got going for them now. Of course, everything's subject to change a little bit. Gotta hash out the details. You know how it is. Stories are ever evolving. So that's been me rambling about these two particular characters, and I guess now I can talk about the actual piece. So it's my standard digital art process. I started out in Tool SAI doing the line art. I moved to Photoshop to add the color, which I didn't record obviously, and then I moved back and decided to do the shading. Now the shading was a bit tricky for this piece. I tried to do a lighting source from the bottom of the image and I feel like it sort of worked. I think it's most evident on their faces, but I don't know if it's that evident everywhere else. I tried my darndest, but you know, you live and you learn and you pick up new skills along the way. So that's what I'm working on here, is the shading. I wasn't initially going to give him abs, but I did off screen. I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't recording when I did that. So I did give him abs off screen. As you can see here, they just sort of pop into existence when I come back and work on some other shading, because I realized I wasn't recording and I wanted to record. So yeah, just working on evening out this shading here. The other thing, like I've gotten into a habit of not recording all the fiddly bits of my pieces. Like I know in this one I go back and I smooth out some of the shading and I add some textures and things like that. I don't record those because they're often lengthy. And the video is pretty lengthy anyway with the shading and with shading and recording and everything. So I usually end up leaving those out because I'm not sure. Like, I want to record the part that I'm sure of, not because I'm worried about you guys seeing my process or anything, but because I don't want to have to go through, 3 hours of footage for me fiddling around at, do I like this border? Do I want it at 30% opacity, or do I want it at 29% opacity? Do I want to add a glow filter here? So I kind of sort of cut that stuff out. But if you're interested in seeing some of that, definitely let me know, and I can record, bits and pieces of me being fiddly with the piece before it gets to the final, because I sort of feel like I'm leaving you guys out of a big part of the finished piece. When I do that, is you're missing some of the bits of where I'm just, getting a feel for the piece and adding details, and you're just getting the bare bones. So yeah, if that's something you want to see, definitely let me know in the comments below, and I will start trying to include some of that when I'm just fiddling around after I get the main shading and stuff done. So I've moved back into Photoshop at this point, and I'm adding in my overshades here. As you can see, it creates another layer of depth in the shading, and kind of makes all the colors, well, either blend or pop depending on what I'm trying to get them to do. Shading abs was surprisingly difficult for me. I hope they look like abs and not weird stomach gashes. The other problem I had was that Banira's colors are naturally dark, and I surrounded him with her kind of dark veil. And so I tried to do things, I add a texture later on that sort of makes the veil lighter but still be black, and kind of make him pop a bit more. And I hope I succeeded in that, but you guys will definitely have to let me know. Working on eyes here, I decided to leave the shines out of his eyes and keep them in hers, so it was kind of like he's in a trance. He's enspelled by this goddess. He loves her dearly, and that's why, she's sort of embracing him, kind of, letting him know that, yes, I acknowledge you and I adore you just as much. So we should be moving into the final piece here in just a few moments while I change the colors on some line art, just to kind of make her blend and pop a bit more. And here we have the finished piece. If you like what you see, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe for more. And hey, don't forget to share this video and let other people see some of my process. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye-bye.